You cannot park ambulance here. Get out!
I turned the corner, sweat running down my spine, radio still crackling on my shoulder, and my ambulance was gone. Not moved, not blocked, just gone. Empty pavement where it should have been. For half a second, my brain refused to accept it. Like my eyes were glitching. Like if I blinked, it would be there again. It wasn't. My chest tightened hard. Pulse spiked so fast I could hear it in my ears. No, no way. I muttered, already breaking into a run. Down at the exit, a tow truck was pulling away with my ambulance strapped to it. Lights, markings, everything, treated like it was just another abandoned car. I started yelling, waving my arms like a lunatic. Hey, that's an ambulance. The driver didn't even tap the brakes. That's when I saw her, the HOA president, standing off to the side like she'd ordered coffee and was waiting for it. Perfect hair, big sunglasses, phone in her hand, calm, smiling, like this was something she'd been meaning to take care of. Rage hit me all at once, hot, physical, my hands shaking. Are you serious right now? I shouted. I'm on duty. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice. You can't park that here, she said. That, like it was trash, like the work didn't matter. Then I noticed her husband across the way. He stumbled, grabbed the fence, bent forward like the air had been punched out of him. Training took over before my thoughts could catch up. But she didn't look at him. She looked at me. And then she started dialing her phone. That's when my partner came running out, took one look at my face and said, "Where's the ambulance?" I pointed down the road. They towed it. Her eyes went wide. My radio crackled. Dispatch asking why our GPS signal had just disappeared. And standing there, watching my ambulance vanish down the street, something cold settled in my stomach. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was control. And it was already putting lives at risk. The HOA president, still smiling. She doesn't care that someone might die waiting for us. She only cares that I parked in my own spot or not. This didn't come out of nowhere. That's the part that still burns. I've been dealing with her for months before she touched my ambulance. It started small. Notes on my door. Emails with bolted lines and highlighted sections. Violation. Non-compliance. Always written like a warning shot. Never conversation. She ran the HOA like it was a courtroom, and she was the only judge. I worked long shifts, 12 hours, sometimes more. I'd come home exhausted, uniform still smelling like sweat and antiseptic, and there would be another notice waiting for me. Trash can out too long. Parking slightly crooked. Once, she cited me for loitering because I sat in my car finishing a report. I laughed the first time. Then I stopped laughing. The staging spot near my place wasn't a secret. Management knew. Supervisors knew. We weren't blocking anyone. We weren't loud. We were there for one reason: faster response times. It made sense to everyone. Everyone except her. Whenever she saw the ambulance, she'd stop and stare. Arms crossed. Tight smile. Like my job offended her personally. I caught her taking pictures once. Didn't even try to hide it. Just stood there, waiting. I should have trusted my gut then. That tight feeling in my chest that said this woman isn't done. The day before the tow, she stopped me near the mailboxes. "Commercial vehicles don't belong here," she said. I kept my voice calm. "It's an emergency vehicle. I'm working." She nodded slowly. "Rules are rules." I said this is not a high school, that was it. No warning. No discussion. So when my ambulance vanished the next day, standing there under that brutal sun, the truth finally clicked. She didn't care about safety. She didn't care about people. She cared about control. And she decided to prove she had it. I didn't cool down. I didn't take a breath. I walked straight to the leasing office like my body was on autopilot. The air inside was cold. Fake calm. The kind of place that smells like carpet cleaner and quiet authority. She was sitting behind the desk, typing, perfectly composed. Like nothing had happened. I didn't greet her. "Where's my ambulance?" She looked up slowly, like I'd interrupted something important. "Excuse me." "The emergency vehicle," I said. "The one you had towed." She leaned back in her chair. "Oh, that." That single word flipped something in me. "You towed an ambulance," I said, my voice tight. "I'm on duty. People are calling 911 right now." She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "Commercial vehicles aren't allowed in resident parking. It's clearly stated. That's not a commercial vehicle. I shot back. That's an emergency response unit. She smiled. Small. Sharp. Rules apply to everyone. My hand was shaking now. I felt it in my jaw, my arms. You delayed emergency response, I said. That can get people killed. She tapped her keyboard once. That sounds like an issue for your employer. Not this community. Something in me went quiet. I asked for the towing company. She slid a sticky note across the desk like she was doing me a favor. Outside, my partner was on the phone with our supervisor. Dispatch had already pulled us from service. Another unit reassigned. Our zone left uncovered longer than it should have been. I drove to the impound lot in silence. Paid the fee. Watched them roll my ambulance back out like nothing had happened. But it wasn't nothing. This wasn't about a tow anymore. She crossed the line, and I wasn't done. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table in a half-lit apartment, laptop open, uniform still draped over a chair like I just stepped out of it. My body was exhausted. My mind wouldn't shut up. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that tow truck pulling away. So I started digging. State laws, city codes, emergency exemptions, page after page of dry language that suddenly mattered a lot. And there it was. Emergency vehicles actively on duty were protected. Interfering with them carried consequences no HOA could override. I printed everything, highlighted it, stapled it into a thick folder. 2 days later, I requested a meeting with the HOA board. She agreed almost immediately. That should have warned me. The meeting room was small and stiff. Folding chairs, a long table. She sat at the center like it belonged to her. I slid the folder across. This is the law, I said. Emergency vehicles are exempt. What you did can't happen again. She barely looked at it. This is private property, she said. You signed an agreement. A contract doesn't override public safety, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Are you threatening the board? No, I said. I'm asking you to fix this. Add an exception. Reimburse the tow. She didn't hesitate. No. Then she leaned forward, lowered her voice, and said it like a promise. If you park it there again, I'll tow it again. The room went silent. That was my breaking point. Not anger. Clarity. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was daring me. I walked out knowing one thing for sure. This wasn't over. And the next move wasn't going to be mine alone. After that meeting, everything felt heavier. I kept doing my job. Running calls. Lifting stretchers. Making decisions that actually mattered. But in the back of my mind, she was always there. Watching. Waiting. Every time I staged near my place, my stomach tightened. I started parking farther away. Wasting minutes I didn't have just to avoid another tow. Minutes that could mean the difference for someone else. I hated that she'd forced that choice on me. At home, the notices came faster. Fees, warnings, courtesy reminders that felt more like threats. I'd open my door after a long shift and feel my shoulders drop when I saw another envelope taped there. Then the neighbors started talking. One guy caught me by the stairs and said, "You too, huh?" A woman whispered she'd been fined for the color of her door. Someone else said she'd threatened to lean over patio furniture. It wasn't just me. Still, late at night, I questioned myself. Is this worth it? Moving would be easier, quieter. I could walk away and never see her again. But then I'd think about that tow truck, about my ambulance sitting behind a fence while people called 911. And whatever doubt I had settled into something solid. I started documenting everything. Dates, photos, emails, witnesses. I didn't make noise. I didn't confront her again. I just built a record. Then the call came in. Unconscious male. Possible cardiac arrest. Address, my complex. My heart slammed as we rolled in lights hot, siren cutting through the night. And when the door flew open, barefoot, shaking, screaming for help, I knew exactly whose house it was. And in that moment, all the power she thought she had was gone. The front door slammed open like a warning. Barefoot, hair messy, face red and panicked. Karen was screaming something. Help him, please. And I realized her husband was on the floor, not moving. No pulse. My hands went straight to work. Mike grabbed the monitor. I dropped to my knees, pumping compression, arms burning instantly, sweat dripping down my face. My mind shut everything else out. The tow, the fines, the emails, all of it. Nothing mattered except oxygen, blood, life. Karen clung to the wall, sobbing, helpless. Part of me wanted to look at her and say, "Remember me? Remember what you did?" But I didn't. Not then. Vefip. Shock able. Mike yelled. I charged. Shock 1, nothing. Compression again. Shock 2, still nothing. My arm screamed. My back ached, my heart pounding. Time stretched. Third cycle. The rhythm finally shifted. He gasped. A ragged, deep breath. Relief cut through me like a knife. I kept compressing a few more seconds to be sure. Then we stabilized him, loaded him into the ambulance. Karen followed, gripping his hand, voice small. "Thank you." I didn't respond. Didn't look at her. Focused on the patient, keeping him alive, keeping my hand steady, keeping the chaos at bay. As we drove away, lights flashing, I looked in the rear view. The person who caused all this danger stood behind me, shaken, finally human, and the power she thought she had, gone. For the first time, I saw her, not as the person who tormented me, but just scared, human, fragile. The moment we left her apartment behind, I knew my fight wasn't over. Saving her husband didn't erase what she'd done. If anything, it made me more determined. That night, I pulled out my folder, emails, photos of notices, tow receipts, witness statements, timestamps. Every petty violation, every interference, every single moment she tried to assert power over people's lives. I called an attorney, someone who'd fought HOA battles before. Grant Keller. Straight to the point. No fluff. I handed him the folder. "Read it," I said. "She's reckless. Dangerous." He flipped through it, nodding slowly. "Yeah," he said. "She's not strict. She's reckless. We can fight this." 2 days later, I sent a formal complaint and request, reimbursement for the tow, and a written exception for emergency vehicles. Copy to the HOA board. Mara's response? Classic. Cold. One word, no. No yes. No maybe. Just no. That's when I understood the truth. She didn't want rules enforced. She wanted control, to scare people into submission. So we escalated. Board meetings, neighbors' testimonies. Stories poured out. One fined for leaving a trash can out a minute too long. Another threatened over a patio chair. Patterns became proof. The room grew tense. Karen tried her usual intimidation. But this time, courage outweighed fear. The vote happened, unanimous among those who spoke. She lost control of the HOA. Finis overturned. Exceptions for emergency vehicles went into writing. Finally, a small measure of relief. But I knew this wasn't over. People like her don't just disappear quietly. They retaliate. They test boundaries. And deep down, I had a feeling the next move would be personal. Just when I thought it was over, the harassment started again. Tires slashed. Garbage dumped on my doorstep. Late night calls from neighbors about suspicious activity. And then the call I dreaded. A state EMS investigator at the station holding a thick folder. She filed a complaint, alleging falsified documentation, improper medication used during the cardiac arrest. My stomach sank. I already knew whose name would be at the top. Mara. My hand shook as I went through every report, every log, every monitor reading. Nothing out of place. Every procedure documented. Every action justified. This wasn't incompetence. This was deliberate. Malicious. Weeks later, the investigator's letter arrived. Complaint unsubstantiated. Cleared completely. Evidence suggested deliberate false reporting. Mara's grip on power? Gone. Her reputation? Publicly damaged. She wasn't just a petty HOA president anymore. She became a cautionary tale. The civil case settled. Legal fees paid. Damages covered. Enough left for me to finally breathe. Pay off bills. No, I hadn't backed down when it mattered. Back in the neighborhood, things changed. Quiet. Friendly. People could finally relax. And me? I returned to the same grueling shifts. But I carried something different now. Not just fatigue. Not just stress. But a carved-in reminder. Some people hate you. Not because you're wrong, but because you refuse to be intimidated. And Mara? She lost her kingdom. But more than that, she lost the ability to hurt people through fear. The kicker? Even after everything, I saved her husband. Some things aren't about her. They're about doing what's right.